Hello, this is a legs flexibility video. So even though you will already have done your warm-up, including your legs, we're going to do just a wee bit extra for the legs. And we'll start off with jogging. And then knees up high. And feet up behind. And jogging, really fast. Normal jogging. Fast. Normal jogging. Fast. Normal. Fast. Normal. And knees up high. Feet behind. And right up high on your toes. Pushing through. Bit of a walkabout. And stretch your heels. So you can have your foot right in front of you, tipping it to the side to show you. And I'm going to lift my knee up, round to the side. So I'm not pulling it very hard, still warming up my hip joint, so I'm lifting it up as if I'm sucking it up towards my armpit. You can use your hand to help a bit if you like, but you're not wanting to overly pull it. Other side. Notice my foot goes out to the side as well. Going to stand in my straddle, flat back, feeling the hamstrings start to stretch. That's a bit of movement, stretching down in front, keeping the legs straight, doesn't matter if you're right down, in the middle and behind. Up. Feet a bit closer. I'm going to repeat that in front, in the middle. So I'm pausing, trying to stretch a bit further, reaching through. Feet closer again, same again. In front. Really pushing the knees back the whole time in the middle. And up. Feet right together now. In front, beside, reaching behind, and up. Going to cross my legs over now. I'm going to reach down, beside, behind. Trying to pull my chest way bit closer to my knees each time. Cross the other way. This is one to make sure you've got your balance in, feet flat, knees back before you do the stretch. In front, beside, behind. going to go back to my legs right beside each other now. I'm going to start with that reaching up and down. All the way down, I'm looking to hold behind my calves. Further up if that's where you can reach, ideally your calves. Pull your chest in a bit closer towards your legs. Then I'm going to crouch down, hands on the ground, but just let them come off if they need. And I'm going to just pop up to 2-leg stretch. Crouch down again, a couple of bounces, and up. Let the legs move a bit. One more, hands behind, pulling my chest in. And release. Get your legs moving whenever you need. So I think at the minute I'm going to pause there before I sit down and straddle. And I'm going to, if I can, catch that foot behind. If you can't catch your foot behind, then you could just be lifting it, getting a stretch on the opposite muscles. If you can catch your foot, looking to catch it behind, pull it up a bit tighter so that you feel more of a stretch. I'm trying to keep my knees beside each other, not let it tip forward. And same the other side. Now I'm going to have a seat in my straddle. I'm going to just start off with some circles. A wee bit of a gentle wake up for all the muscles. And the other way. And from here I'm going to reach up and forward to my Japana, keeping my hands off the ground, pushing my knees right down. Aiming to get your chest, your tummy on the floor. And up. Now I'm going to turn to one leg and I'm going to lift up and forward over that leg. Other leg. Making sure your knees don't roll in at any point, they're facing the ceiling and they're pressing down firmly into the ground. Into the middle for another Japana again. Make sure you're extending the line of the legs right down to your pointed toes. I think mine are off camera, they are pointed. and to one side now, one arm over, one arm up. This time I'm going to flex the foot, just the one that I'm leaning towards. So we've got my left arm up and I'm flexing to my right foot. So I'm aiming for my shoulder to come down as near to the ground as possible on the inside of that leg. The other toe is pointed. Both my knees are pressed down. Opposite side. So I'm going to change my toes around, flex the one I'm reaching towards. And one more Japana, up and into the middle. Last one, see how far you can get it. If you need a wee wiggle, have a wee wiggle. As it's the last one, I'm going to try and pull myself in a wee bit. And up. Give your legs a shake, just to ease them off a bit. That is very intense. I'm going to kneel up with my feet right under my bottom so the legs are straight. I'm absolutely not out of line. Everything is in the same line, right, my thighs are right on top of my calves. Just a wee alternate stretch there. Ready for my butterfly. So I've got my feet together and I've got my hands and my feet. I'm going to bounce my knees. So it's a gentle bounce, and then I'm looking to feel it a wee bit on my hips. I'm not looking to really bounce my hip joint very hard, but I'm looking to make sure I feel it. And now I'm going to pause, and now I am going to concentrate a bit more on really pulling down. But you'll notice it's static. I'm not moving very much, there's no big movements. You can, if it helps, open your feet up like a book. You can use your elbows or your hands to push your knees down a bit. And from here, I'm going to try and keep that pull down as much as I can, but at the same time I'm going to lift up and forward. So trying to keep a fairly straight back, pulling. So I'm really aiming for my belly button towards my feet. Now my hips aren't very flexible. I'm finding that very tricky, but I can feel it. I actually feel it in my tummy trying to move. And you can ease that off, moving your knees side to side. From here, hold on to your toes and slide your legs forward, or shuffle them far as you can until you have to let go. Sitting up, good posture, tight core, and and looking for your L. A bit late to point my toes, but there you go, they're pointed now. Fingers together, flat hands, they're facing forwards, that's engaging most of my back muscles. I'm going to lift up and forwards. And up. Now I'm going to do the same again, but I'm going to grab behind my calves and pull my chest in a bit like I did when I was standing. Not so you hurt yourself, just so you can see if you can stretch a wee bit further. And if you can, if it's sore, just leave it where you're at. Up, forwards, going to reach, press my knees down and pull. And up. This time, legs a wee wiggle, going to do the same with my feet flexed, with my toes up towards the ceiling. L, up, forwards. Keep pushing the knees down. And up, and I'm going to do that one more time, but with my feet flexed up against something. So I've got a sofa here, but you might have a wee wall space somewhere. Check with your adult, you want something safe that's not going to move. So my feet are up against there, knees are down, L, up and forwards. That's a really intense one, worth doing other times. Definitely need to give my legs a shake out. Whoa. Now I'm going to get my legs moving with some side squats. So I'm going to make like a lunge shape. I'm trying to have my knee, this knee out. So my knees are always going over my feet. And I'm aiming to keep fairly upright, my hips in a straight line, side to side, turning knee others to the ceiling, and when it bends, pointing over my foot. Both my feet are in second position, toes turned out. I'm going to try and get that a bit lower. I can move my feet further away if I need. Aiming for my hips moving in a straight line, side to side. So you can pause and try and push down a bit, or you can keep moving. That's probably about as low as I can go, but maybe you can get a bit lower. If I start to let my knees come out of form, tip in or whatever, I can certainly start to go lower. That's not really what I want. So I'm going to now stand in like a squat second position, knees over my feet, toes turned out. I'm going to try and sit down, pulling my knees back. I can turn to one side, then the other, thinking about my hips. If you can feel a stretch working anywhere in all your hip muscles, round about front back, then you're doing something. So I'm not wanting my knees to creep in, keeping them over my feet. And standing up, feet just shoulder width, toes pointing slightly out again. Going to see if I can squat all the way down. And there's my knees starting, they want to come in, because that's quite tricky for my hips. See if you can try that, shoulder width apart, feet out. How low can you squat? Trying to keep your knees out. Like our straddle exercises, but with one leg out to straddle and the other leg bent in. So just keep it wherever's comfy. I'm aiming for this knee on the ground, but actually I know it's not going to just sit there. My hip isn't that flexible, it's not relaxed. If your hip is, keep it on the ground. If not, just let it go where it goes. So this toe's pointing to just above my knee, but you can put it anywhere vaguely comfy. Try and have it in close to your leg, but if that doesn't work for you, you can keep it out. And I'm going to just place my hands for a bit of balance in front of my shin here. I'm going to lean forwards. And then I'm going to turn to my straight leg and lean forwards, trying to keep that knee down, but I'm concentrating more on this stretch. And up, same again, leaning forwards. Try to pull my chest a bit closer to the ground, pressing this knee down. And over that straight leg. One more, forward. Leg. And the other side, so I'm going to change my legs. My other leg is straight, other leg bent in. Two hands in front of my shin, leaning my chest down. Turn towards the straight leg and forward over that leg. In front of your shin. So if it's a bit higher this time, that feels a bit comfier. Forward over the straight leg. One more time, forwards. Over the straight leg. I'm going to do that one more time. This time, instead of having my leg in a straddle, I'm going to try and have it just as much as possible right out to the side. So mine isn't quite out to the side. My knee's still facing the ceiling and I'm pointing my toe. My foot now coming just as close in to that leg as I can. I'm going to lean forward, and now it's harder work to hold my leg out here to keep that knee up. So I'm having to do more work pulling my leg round while I lean forward. And over that straight leg. looking to pull this knee down a wee bit. One more time, chest in front. And over the straight leg. Same again on the other side. Trying to have my leg out to the side, rolling the knee up to the ceiling, opposite foot bent into the leg. And chest down. Just as far as it goes, so if you're up leaning here, that's absolutely fine. Up and over the straight leg. Same again. Straight leg. And up. Moving out of all these positions nice and gently. Going to do marching on my knees to loosen off my legs. And I'm going to get two pillows. Two pillows to give myself a wee treat when I'm doing Froggy. So I'm going to have my knees on the cushions. So I want to keep my hips and my knees in that straight line. So you can look for a line on the floor, use the edge of your mat if you need. Knees apart, hips in line, feet apart. And then that pushing back. Now, as long as you're in the right position, pushing back, in line, then you can move around a wee bit. Certainly, if your hips are very stiff like mine, it's quite an intense stretch, but you can feel a bit of movement, gives lots of different muscles a wee stretch. And maybe one day my box splits will be marvellous. If not, bound to be better on the pommel. And come out nice and carefully. And I'm going to move my knees side to side. This one I'm going to try and get as close to the wall as I can, lying on my back in a straddle, and just let gravity pull the weight of my legs down. So you can give that a try. Make sure you're pushing your knees so your legs are straight. Try and stay there for 10 seconds or so, and in time, see if you can build it up to a longer amount of time. Let gravity help the hip stretch. This exercise is much more of a killer than it looks, but it's a good one if you're really wanting to try and get a bit more stretch in your box splits, but definitely take it easy, give it a wee try, see if you think it's for you. If it's too intense, just leave it. If it is for you, then try and work up your time, maybe from 10-15 seconds, try and get to 20-30 seconds, and so on. I have ankle weights, and I'm going to lie down close as I can to the wall with my legs up. And really, I'm just looking to straddle my legs and let the weights, let gravity stretch that a bit further in the other direction. So my main job is to get as close to the wall as I can, push my knees in, and you'd be looking to stay there for a length of time. But just give it a try and think if it's for you or not. Now coming back to this one leg bent, one leg straight position, and what this does, it really lets the exercise you're doing focus on one hip more than the other. So you're focusing on one, getting a bit of extra stretch or movement work there, and then always the same the other side. So this one, I'm going to try and have my leg again out to the side as much as I can get it. Other foot close in, and I'm just looking to do that as if I'm doing half a swim through. Roll forward, roll back. So I'm rolling onto my shin, roll forward, and that's my hips in line, and roll back. Good, roll forward, right onto my elbows, and stay here for a while. So it's as if I'm doing half a box split. My straight leg hip is getting a good work, and this hip is getting to stay. So it's not just as intense as working the box splits if you don't have good box splits. And I also think the movement forward and backwards is a good stretch for your hip. Remember, when you come forward, not worrying about where this bent knee is, but my hips should be in line with that leg out to the side. And that's the position if I want to pause in. So you can spend a bit of time here, 20 seconds, see if you can work up to 30 seconds and a minute, working one leg of your box splits at a time. Remembering to be nice to your hips, give them a wee hug or a bit of movement in between. Always the same on the other side. Out to the side as much as possible with my straight leg, foot in close, rolling forward, hip in a straight line with my knee, in a straight line with my foot. Other leg, because it's bent, because it's not in the box splits, I'm not too worried where it is as long as I'm comfy. Or as comfy as you can get when you are practicing anything for box splits, is my opinion. So I'm going to go forwards and backwards a few times. Maybe one day this will lead you to do a swim through. So just letting that foot roll, and I'm just rolling onto the shin, onto the top of my foot on the other side. And then I'm going to try and pause here for a length of time. And here, if I need, I'm thinking about pushing down with my hips towards the ground. But if you already feel it enough, just pausing there is fine. Being nice to your hips. If you can, you could then try from your straddle, can you move forward? So if you've got good box splits, you could just do a swim through. I do not. So I don't even have good enough box splits to do the leaning forward up to straddle, but if you can go from here, straddle, onto your chest. I've got the one hand behind, one hand in front scenario going on. That's where my hips are at. Trying to get up. I've even gone squint and forwards. So you can try that any way you like. And again, it's a bit of hip mobility, trying to stay pointing forwards the whole time if you can. Onto your stomach and close. So even if you've not got good box splits, you're not going to do your swim through this week or next week, it is a bit of exercise, keeping the hips mobile, getting them used to that kind of a stretch, and hopefully that can be part of getting yourself closer and closer to box splits. And you can do that a few more times. Now, maybe you're pleased that that's the hip intensity over. I am moving on to front splits. So I'm going to start one knee in front, one leg behind. From the off, make sure your hips are straight forward, that your leg is all in the one line. There's nothing squinting in different directions. Do that from this first thing. I'm going to shuffle my foot forward. I don't want my knee to come in front of my foot. I'm going to push my hips down, trying to stay upright as much as I can. But if you need a bit of balance, you can put your hands on the ground, one hand either side, no going squint. And again, some days if you're wanting a more intense stretch, you could spend a bit more time in every one of these poses, and other days where you need to get moving, you're not looking to rush them, but you can do less time. So I'm going to move on by moving my bottom back. I've not moved my feet anywhere. Front leg straight, leaning forward, hand either side. And then I'm going to flex my foot up at the front. That makes it a bit more of an intense stretch. Keep pushing your knee down. If your hamstrings are very stiff, I would rather you were right up high, working on getting your front leg straight than anything else. If you're at the stage where you can lean down, get an extra stretch, great. If you're not, if that feels like a big stretch for you, then listen to your body. That's a big stretch for you, and that's absolutely fine. If you're doing here and you feel a big stretch, if you can get a bit more stretch, go for it. If not, work the hamstrings you've got. You certainly don't want to injure them. Now I'm going to bend that front knee forward again, and this time I am going to put two hands on one side. They're on the inside. So my right leg is in front, it's on the outside, and I'm going to put my two hands on the inside. Right leg in front, both arms on the left. So they're on the same side as my back leg. Hope you can all work that out. And here I'm going to have my hands in line with my front foot, and I'm going to bend my elbows so I can feel that stretch right down in my hip on the side of the leg that's up. I'm aiming to, if I can, get my elbows on the ground. To do that, I am letting my knee come out to the side. Now that's very intense, so any bend at all, you'll feel a bit of an extra stretch. That's absolutely fine. If you can, drop those elbows. That's enough of that. And now I'm going to turn my toes under at the back, push that back leg straight. Same again, if you need the balance, an arm either side, we're back to that. if you can, upright. Pushing the hips down, so you're never just relaxing in these poses, you're always, if you can, pushing a bit more out your hips, pressing the knees on the straight legs up. Drop down. And now, so I've got my hand for balance on the sofa if you need for this one. Shuffling a wee bit, I want a knee on the mat because I'm going to try and lift that back foot up. That's really uncomfy. I'm going to be nice to myself. Get a cushion. Be nice to yourself too. So knee on the cushion. Don't let your knee come in front of your ankle. That forward lunge again. If you can, move your foot. Great. If you can catch it, even better. If you get a cramp in your thigh, just relax, ease it off. Try again. If you keep getting a cramp in your thigh, don't worry about it. I would leave it. So this is really stretching my hip flexor for that back leg in splits. If it's enough for you just staying here, because that's quite intense on the hip flexor as it is, just stay here. I did all those stretches with my right leg in front, so whatever leg you had in front, have in front again. So I'm on my knee and I'm going to chuck foot round there if I can. So I'm just sitting sideways. Let's talk about my front leg. Back leg, I'm going to push it straight out behind me and leaning up. So the idea here is I'm trying to push my hips down. My back leg is straight behind me. You can have a check. Of course, you can bend that foot up to see if it's in a straight line, but you don't need to do that. I've just tucked my foot in towards the other hip, out the road, and my weight is pushing down on the ground. I can really feel it in my hips. I'm going to do that from the side in case you're not sure what's going on, and you can see how I get into it. So 2 knees on the ground, 1 knee forward, then I'm going to slide that foot round, just to wherever it goes is fine. Keeping my knee on the ground at the back, check, my leg is straight, and then I'm looking to push my hips down to the ground. Gravity's helping as well. So when I'm upright, there's a bit more weight pushing my hip down. And I come forward a wee bit, it feels a bit more intense. So you can try all these positions, hold them for a wee bit of time if you can, and drop your elbows to the ground. Feels a bit more intense again. Looking to spend a bit of time in each of these positions and give reaching forward a try in this position as well, if you can. From here, quick shake of the legs, and I'm ready to try my right leg splits. So you can get your timer. Minute's a good aim, whether you're up high in your splits, feeling that stretch down the front hamstring, working on keeping your balance and keeping your front leg straight, or whether you are further down. You can get yourself a timer and work on that. I'm going to let you do that, so you can pause if you want to do that right now. But I wanted to talk about, in your splits, trying to lift that back foot up if you can. And that's really working this back leg extra flex. But if your normal splits are enough for you, you don't need to worry about that back leg. If you would like to really work this back leg, the hip flexor, the quad, then Amy Meeklem had a similar video as well, where you had your back knee up against something, and you went into your front splits. Again, you'd be aiming to hold that for a bit of time. So try a bit of time and then increase it as you can. It's got to be time for the other leg then, isn't it? Other knee up. Push forward with the hips. Bottom back, leaning forward over your straight leg. Flex the foot. Knee forwards again. My two hands on the inside, so I've got my left leg, so both my arms are on the right now, inside that leg. I'm going to bend my elbows just as close to the ground as I can. At least I think all the box split hip exercises helped that one. But we don't do it very often, so if you feel it's really intense, don't worry about it if you did it more often. It would be just the same. Toes under, back leg straight. Pushing the hips down. Remembering you can have a think for yourself if you're really wanting to focus on leg and hip flexibility, maybe wanting to spend more time in all these positions on days where that's working for you. Knee down at the back, thinking about lifting that foot up if I can. And remember, I've padded my knee with a cushion any time I wanted to. I'm certainly not here to be even more uncomfortable than all this. And again, the more I can stretch forward, the more intense that is. But I can't stretch further forward and move my foot further forward. Just doing whatever you can, whatever suits you. Leg down at the back, and that's me almost in that pigeon position. Left leg in front, still going to be in front. Shuffle my foot round. Hips down, shuffle my leg back so it stays straight. Pushing my hips down a bit, but gravity is really doing most of the work. Upright. Wee bit further forward. That small movement for me really changes the stretch. Right down forward, or just press down wherever you can. And then the reaching forward. You can also lift your foot at the back for this one, if you like. If your hip flexors have done enough, that's fine. Left leg splits. So probably we're all managing half a minute of left leg splits. But if if you're really looking to improve your splits, improve your flexibility, you really want to be aiming for at least a minute and doing it 2 or 3 times a week at least. So maybe you could start, if you're in the living room, you're all warmed up, maybe you could sit, watch an advert break, or sit for the length of a song, or try things like that to distract you. Sitting in your splits, and we've got the foot up behind. That was a bit squint so I can see my hips are still there. A bit still squint. Well, maybe if I shove it up against the sofa it won't be able to move. There we go, it's already straight. So all I need to sort is my front leg. You can hold your splits and have a think what exercises you could be working on, what ones you'll maybe work on another time or in the future. And again, work to your own time, work up your own time. Don't you think we have absolutely earned a seat? Definitely. So I'm going to have a seat and point, really working hard, really point them to the ground, and then really flex up high if you can. Flex so hard that your heels are coming off the ground. If you can, push your knees so tight when you point that your heels are off the ground. So it's not just a kind of casual ankle warm up, it's really pushing the flexibility, because of course if you're getting your leg flexibility up but you've got big spade feet at the end of your pommel swings, at the end of your splits, you're going to lose those marks. So working your toe point flexibility is as good as everything else. I've got quite bendy feet, so if you don't worry. I mean, I've got to have something bendier than my hips, right? So if you find it comfy, you can rest your feet behind you. If you've not got a lot of weight on it, see if that gives the top of your foot, your toes a stretch. Just make sure you're not leaning away to one side over only your big toe, or leaning away over to the other side over everything except your big toe. Trying to get a bit of both if you can. And if your foot's behind you, I'm standing on this leg, I'm not putting any weight on that leg behind. If your feet are quite flexible and it's comfy, you can roll them around a bit over your toes. But a good one for everyone is rolling to point and whatever. So you would have a use for all these empty tins eventually, and here's a full tin. So I'm just going to roll it back, roll it forward. And I could kind of roll it all the way back, get a free foot massage while you're there. So I could concentrate on one foot at a time. Now I'm sure there'll be maybe Pringles tubs and whatever, cardboard tubes possibly, but they'd be very easy to squash. So I've got a coffee tin and a full tin of chickpeas that I haven't used yet, but I'll give them a wash so they don't smell of cheesy feet. If you can, you can make it a coordination exercise and try both toes at once. You could also use an old water bottle or whatever. That's quite a good one for the fluid movement. Working those toe points. Now, if you've kept going, we are nearly, but not quite done yet. We've done all this work, so much work on your legs, it's worth doing just a wee bit more. Don't usually do too much dynamic flexibility when you're moving, so you're not looking to get an injury, but because your legs should be really, really warmed up, I'm going to do that swing up. So as high as I can, comfortably. I want to feel it, but I don't want to try and kick myself in the face and pull a muscle. So I'm going to just kick high 10 times to the front. I'll show you 5 just now actually, because I'm sure the video is getting really long. And to the side, cutting across to the side, and again behind. Got my hands on a wall for balance, and I've just kicked the chair, so make sure you don't do that. Hips forwards. Same again on the other side. And just a note, when you're swinging out to the side, forward and your knee up to the ceiling. That's knee up to the ceiling. So because your legs are so warmed up, a bit of extra movement with the swing and the kick. Stay safe. Now the key to really nailing your best splits, your best split leaps and all of these things is your oversplits. I know a lot of you work them regularly and some of you maybe don't. So I would like to say that even if your splits aren't the best, you can still get a wee bit extra out of having just a very slight oversplit. So you can see what you have in your house that's safe to use. Check if you're adult. You could have 1 book, 2 books. You could have 2 cushions, 4 cushions. Dismantle your sofa for the big cushions. So have a think. Check with your adult. And even if your splits are quite high, just raising that front foot makes the stretch a wee bit more intense. Pushing the knee down, even if that's where you're at. And if it's not where you're at, feel free to see what you can do. Today's a good day to give it a try after all that leg work. Making sure you are straight. And again, you want to try and keep it for a length of time. If you give it a try and you think, oh, I can't do that, that's sore, just come out. If you do that and you think, okay, try and see if you can hold it for 10 or 15 seconds, build up to 20 or so. If you're used to doing it, you'll have a longer time. Again, working your way up to a minute. And actually, you could also try that on your back knee. We've done all that work on our hip flexors, on our quads. So unlike when we do support work and we're saying only have your feet on, this time you do want to have your knee on. Not all the way back, but well on. And again, sliding out front leg. If this is something you work well and you work a lot, then feel free to have something under your front foot and your back knee. Possibly this might be the last time you see me with my legs attached. Maybe leave this one. There we go. And if you get to the stage where you know you're dangling between high up objects looking fancy, then that's good. So I hope that your splits feel much better. Remember to always work both sides. So I've finished off with my oversplits. So now I would need to be doing my other side. Make sure you always work both. You'll use maybe just your best side in competition, but you never know when you might need both sides for the PPP routines, for spinning and split or whatever. Always work both sides, and well done. Now make sure you give your legs a bit of a cool down. A nice shake out and a nice gentle stretch. So none of these stretches I'm doing more than just engaging all the muscles. I've done a lot of hard work on my legs and I want to be able to walk tomorrow. Probably worth going for a walk, offer to do a message for somebody in your house perhaps. Just something gentle to keep your legs moving, to work everything off in the stretches. Remembering your hips.